going to call this meeting to order. It's the Board of Selectmen meeting for March 3rd, 2026. President's myself, Bob Carlson, the first Selectman, Selectman John Gassion, Selectwoman Nicole Porter is online, and Admin Finance Officer Suzanne Thero is here also. Start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Hello to Nicole.
Hello.
Is it nice and warm down there?
It is. It is.
Is it as warm as this room was last night?
Pretty much. Did we get snow there today?
No, it was mostly a little bit of mix, and then now it's mostly rain. It's still it's going to rain all night. So, did you get my email I sent to you?
I did. Yep,
oh, perfect. Thank you. All right. So we don't expect to keep you too long tonight because I think obviously the main thing is the budget. So, but we'll go through the list and see what happens.
Okay.
All right. All right, so let's start with, we did the Pledge of Allegiance, public comments on non-agenda items. Nicole, you can't see this, but there's no one in this room except me, John, Suzanne, and you.
Oh, that's because everybody came out last night.
Yeah, and we have people online? Oh, we have one person online. Okay, so with that said, on the minutes, okay, I'd entertain a motion we have 4 sets of minutes to approve. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve minutes from February 4th, 2026, February 17th, 2026, February 18th, 2026, and February 19th, 2026.
Great, thank you. Do I hear a second? Thank you, Nicole. Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from February 4th, 17th, 18th, and 19th, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 3-0, that passes. Thank you. Okay, Selectmen comments. Is there any comment by either you, Nicole, or John this evening?
Nothing for me.
Nothing, John?
None.
Okay. First Selectmen comments. I just want to comment for 1 minute on last night's meeting. It was like an old time town meeting with 136 people voting in the room, plus another 20 some odd people online. So can't remember the last time we had 150 plus people at a town meeting. So that was good. So I guess it all goes down to what the subject matter is, what's on the agenda. I will say that I did contact the state. Jen Strunk sent an email to the state acknowledging the fact that she was not approved and that she would not be doing a function at America 250 event, and the state had her as a contact person. So Jason Mancini reached out to me and said, "Who's the new contact person for who can we reach as far as the Historic Society?" I gave them all the information they needed, and that is the event, standalone event for North Stonington at this time. I'll keep you guys in the loop as we have. If there's any meetings as far as emergency services, things that are going to be going on, I'll make sure we know. And I invited them to come to a meeting sometime in March, just so we can better market what's going to be happening on that day. And that's all I have. Next, Director of Human Services job description discussion. So we had hoped to, because the clock's ticking, to get this thing posted sooner instead of later. I'd like to get something posted by the end of this week, or at the very least the early part of next week. I'd like to post it for about 2 weeks, set up an interview process after that. Be myself, Suzanne, you, Nicole, and I don't know if it's the Leanne from the Stonington Online or not, but when I spoke to her, she agreed that she would be one of our interview people if we needed her to do that, which would be great. So have you had a chance to look at the job description? Let me know if there's anything you'd like to see changed, if you're good with the way it is. If there's any questions, let me know. It's kind of a hybrid job description that we did. I did take some things from what I received from Stonington. There was also things from a few other towns. I think Suzanne gave me something from Chaplin. There was I think I might have something from Legend. So we took the best of all worlds and tried to fit it into what we want to do, which is a little bit different than some of the other towns. We're not going to have recreation as part of it and so on. So with that said, is there anything you'd like to see different about this job description before we post it? And if not, and we'll go over, when we go over the budget, we'll talk a little bit about what we're thinking as far as the budget numbers for this position. Anything from you, John or Nicole, on this?
No, I reviewed it. I agree with what is there. I think it'll be a work in progress as somebody kind of takes the ball and starts running with it. I think that as long as there is some flexibility within the job description. I think the job description is a great way to get somebody started. But I just think as we kind of start this, it may morph into, it may change a little bit. And I just want a little bit of flexibility to be able to do that.
I totally agree. I think when we start with this in, we'll say April, when we look at the same thing a year after, it may be, there may be some changes. We might have to rewrite the job description to better detail what we're doing. And really, a lot of it's going to depend on who we bring in as a director. So, yeah, I think there's definitely going to be flexibility. It's a new position for us. And we need to take what was best from what was happening in the past and add this new piece of human services to it. So, yeah, thank you. John, thoughts?
In the education spot, is
Yes.
there any certifications or training that we may need to require due to the constant changing or evolution of the social services program?
So I think that will be coming out in the interview process. It was pretty strict at first where you had to have particular credentials. And then we said, or if you've got experience. And I think sometimes experience outweighs. Sometimes you can go to college and get a degree, but if you've been doing the job 8 years somewhere else, you may have a better idea on how it should be done. So I just didn't want to eliminate someone because, when you put the criteria in that says you must have rather than you prefer, you could eliminate a good candidate that could be your best candidate, but because they don't check the box, he or she doesn't check the box on I'm sure there's going to be some certification that you either have to have or you have to get shortly after you take the job, if there's training involved. But I'm thinking that we want someone that's pretty well trained, pretty well knowledgeable, someone who's done this before to start, whether they spend 2 or 3 years with us or 5 years or 10 years. But the biggest thing I think we have to do is make sure that we set it up correctly to begin with. And then if something happens where that person moves on in a couple of years, at least we know it's set up correctly. If you don't get it set up correctly and then 2 years or 3 years from now you have a vacancy, then you got to start from scratch again. So I think that's important. And that's why I think in the interview process, I think we're going to be looking for people that have true working experience in this field, because if you have no experience doing it, you could come in maybe somewhere down the road, either with us or somebody else as an assistant, and then learn it and then become a full director somewhere else. But I think I'm not sure we could start that way and have someone just kind of learn the job as they go. I think we're going to be relying on someone to come in and know what they're doing. I'm not an expert at this. I don't think either of the two selectmen. Obviously, Nicole is more of an expert than we are in the medical field. But when it comes to something like this, I'm going to defer to the person we hire to tell us how this has to go, or he can tell us how this has to go.
I think one certification may be the food safe certification. If they're going to be doing the cooking, that would be one thing that would be a requirement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think we can, and those are things we can discuss in the, and if Leanne does join us, she could help us out with some of that also.
Other than that, I think it looks good.
Oh, Suzanne, would that be something that would be okay to obtain after hire, or would you expect that person to come with it before they started?
They should have it before they start cooking. They should have that food safe certification beforehand.
Do we know if the existing senior center director has that?
I don't know, but I could find out if she does. Yeah.
Okay.
So if we had to delay food service program until they got that certification. Isn't it like a
Yeah.
2-day course?
Yeah. It's an online course that
Yeah,
they could
so it's
take.
not like
so-
it would be hard for them to attain, so we could get the candidate, and if they had to get it after, like Nicole was saying, they could get it and we could put a timeline, like, 30 days to get.
Correct.
Okay, so
Yeah.
no lunches for 30 days.
Yeah, with the stipulation that there not be any food preparation before. I'm always a fan of putting, to your point, Bob, putting the basic requirements that we'd like to see. And then everything else can be preferred. And just because somebody's got a master's degree with no experience, and we have somebody, it just allows us to choose the right fit for the position, rather than just, to your point, Bob, somebody checking the boxes of the requirements.
Agreed. Thank you. So are we all on the same page? It's kind of like the vision. We've talked about the vision for what this is. Are we kind of on the same page as the vision, meaning that we're going to keep the agent for the elderly, obviously, senior center director, but you're adding this piece of human services and developing that one place that everyone knows if there's an issue, this is where you go. And that's where the guidance can happen. That's where we can put people on the right path. We can find them help. Person that really knows who's out there, who is out there for housing, who's out there for food, who's out there for, whatever it happens to be. We know there's many 501c3s out there that are experts in different fields. And the big thing is, if you're in this position, is where do you go? If that person comes to you and they're in crisis mode, they're not thinking straight. They just want to have you take them by the hand and help them. And I think that's the person we're looking for, is someone that has that knowledge, knows where to go, where to get the help, where to get it quickly, how it would be financed and all that goes with it. So I think that's a big part of the job. Is I kind of say it's like what we do with animal control, right? With Kasha, animal gets loose, you go to social media, everyone says call Kasha, and she solves the problem. I don't know how it gets solved, but we know she solves the problem. And I think it's going to be like this: call whoever the Kasha is of human services. So if someone's in town, says, what happens if this happens? Call this person. And then that's where you begin the path to getting into a better situation. That's my vision anyway. I assume that you and John have a similar one.
I do, and I think it's going to give our residents, like in a time of crisis, a more stable place to go. You're not reaching out to a stranger. You're going to see this person throughout the community, whether it be somewhere at lunch or their grandparents or their mother or father see them at the senior center. I think it will benefit the residents in that way. So then they'll know, look, this person I can trust. I can know where to get the help, and they'll help me get it. I think it'll help alleviate a lot of the tension or stress in one of the emergency situations.
Great. Thank you, John.
And we envision the person working out of the senior center.
Yes, I think we'll make sure that the senior center is, whether we have to make it more of a confidential office space, or if they set up hours so there's more confidentiality. Because one thing I really don't want to have, I think that Teresa in the past has done a wonderful job with our seniors. And I really don't want them to feel like they're either taking a back seat or they're going to be losing some of what they've had. If anything, I'd like to enhance some of the things that they've already had. And we may have to meet with some seniors sometimes, and, after a month or two, and say, what is it that you think that you're not getting the same, or are you happy? And I just think we need to make sure that we do what we've done in the past for the seniors, just adding this extra piece. And that's why we're going to a more of a full-time position, because we think that extra piece obviously is going to take more time. So, okay. So if we're all in agreement, then I don't think we have to vote on it. I can just, if we're in agreement, I'll get that Director of Human Services job description out. We'll post that job shortly. Do you think 2 weeks is ample, Suzanne? Okay. And then once we start getting applications in, I actually have 3 that I got in that we haven't even posted yet. So once we start getting applications in, then we can start looking at setting up the interview process. Okay. Nothing else on that. We'll move forward. Thank you. Okay, next. Budget discussion. So what I sent you today, and I'd like to go over a few of these things before we actually start going through the budget. I sent you 3 sheets. I thought that, when we go through the budget, these 3 items will help you define some of the things that I've worked on in the last couple of days, just for some clarity purposes. So you should have the, North Stonington Volunteer Fire Company per diem hours. That was the discussion I had with the chief yesterday or the day before. The salary comparison after survey results, and you should have the budget reductions by the first selectman, followed by some notes on some items that are in both in the revenue side and on the expense side. So on the North Stonington per diem hours, because you will see where I reduced the budget 147,436.80. The way I attacked this was I talked to the chief, and we know he wanted to go to a 24/7 per diem situation. And I thought about how we did capital and how we kind of brought stuff in so much per year. And I said, well, if you look at 24/7, that's 168 hours in a week. And we already know we're covering 50 hours right now with the 2 per diems we have. So that leaves 118 hours. If you divide that by 3, you're basically 40 hours per week. So I said to the chief, what if we went 40 hours this week, 40 this year, 40 hours next year, and 38 hours the last year? Then you eventually will get to 24/7. But in the meantime, we'll just kind of roll it in a third, a third, and a third. And you can decide when those 40 hours would be best be used for coverages. Right now, we're covering 50 with the per diem. That leaves, that's 118 that are being covered by the volunteers somehow, however they're doing it. And I know he's talking about getting to fires quicker. If you have people in the station versus people that have to drive in. And according to what he told me was that the guys just don't hang around the fire station like they did back in the day. They spend the time with their families. Most of them have jobs outside of the fire company. So when they are at home, they spend time with the families, and they're not just hanging around at the station. So they do have to put the call out, and then they come to the station, get their gear, jump on a truck and go. And I can understand why that would slow down the arrival time at a fire. So again, trying to compromise, knowing this is a tough budget year with the reval, I asked him if we could try to do it this way. We did it. I did the math, and it comes out to, he had a $420,000 ask at a 24/7 per diem. I was able to reduce that by 147,436.80. And then the other 78 hours would be covered by volunteers. Next year, if we took another 40, then that would leave 38 hours that would have to be covered by volunteers in that following year. So again, when we go through the budget, this will come up. I just want to give you some background on how that number happened. Is Nicole still with us? Okay, she disappeared. I don't see her on the screen anymore. Nicole, you're still with us, right?
Can you hear me?
I can. Your face disappears. I didn't know whether we lost you.
I'll try and fix that. I'm trying to scroll on my phone and have the document up as well.
Okay, you know what? That's fine. As long as we know you're there. I didn't want to, if we lost you, you don't have to be on the screen by any means.
Yeah, no, I'm here. So Bob, I have a question, right? Because so I'd like to do a little bit of digging. I had asked Chief what surrounding towns are doing as far as staffing goes. And, before we commit to moving towards a fully paid department, I just want to make sure. I'd like to, I heard all of the statistics, and please, as somebody who had to call the fire department for a small fire in our side yard, every minute, it's literally just a matter of a couple of minutes, but man, it seems like it's a long time when you're waiting. And so I get it, but this is a huge commitment that we're moving towards. And I just want to try and understand how different we are or the same we are from like departments and like towns and how they're handling staffing as well. Because this will be a huge chunk of the budget moving forward if we follow through with all of the additional additions that we're going to add in the next couple of years after this one. It's a big ask. It's important. I get that. I just want to understand what has changed that we're looking at this model now.
Yeah, good points. I think that, so as far as this evening goes, trying to get the budget down to a number I can present to the Board of Finance tomorrow evening. That's why this took place. It doesn't mean that we can't have continuing conversations and maybe we do a 180 turn after this year. But I know that small towns like Preston, they brought on like 4 or 5 full-time fire people, and they have a chief, and then they use volunteers after that. We don't have those full-time fire people. Even our chief is not full-time. And our per diem's not full-time positions, but not full-time people. So we're not paying, all the fringe that we would if it was a town employee. But I think it's a point well taken, Nicole. I think that not locking in, but at least if we're budgeting for this step, and it's a long time between now and the budget hearing in April, if we're budgeting for this step and we find there's a better way to do it, but for me to go in front of the Board of Finance tomorrow with some crazy increase, we're starting at a 14.2, as you know, if I don't get this thing down to a number that's at least palatable, I mean, I'm not going to live through tomorrow night's Board of Finance meeting. So, but I do understand what you're saying, and it's not for us to make a permanent commitment. Yes, I think there should be more discussion, and maybe we bring the chief into a Board of Selectmen meeting without the Board of Finance, just to talk to us some evening to talk about options. We could do that.
Okay. Can you just refresh my memory, Bob? How many hours is your 143,000 and change going to get us? 40 hours of?
So the savings is 147,436. So basically a man hour, which is whether we pay them for the time and the employee taxes for that particular position comes out to $29.12 per hour. That's what it is. So if you take the 29.12 times 40 hours, right, times 2. So I don't have my calculator with me, but that's how much it would cost us additional to what we're paying now. What he had asked for was that same number times 118 hours.
Yeah.
Times 2. So, so I was able to cut basically 78 hours times $29.12 per hour times 2 out of the budget is what I did. And that came to 147,436. So if you think that if we took a third of this year, then that 147,436 must represent 2/3. So looking at it quickly, what's half of 147? That's about 75,000 apparently. So roughly $75,000 for every 40 hours.
Okay.
Times 2, because there's 2 guys. So it's actually 80 hours.
Okay. Yep.
All right. So that's just the on the fire company.
Can I ask one more question, Bob?
Sure.
And I don't know if we're going to be going line by line.
We will. We will. It's our first and only night before we have the Board of Finance tomorrow night, so we have to.
Okay, then I'll wait until we get there.
And that's what that's why I wanted to clear the schedule this evening, except for the senior center. I wanted to make sure there was nothing else, so we didn't have to be here at 10 o'clock going through this.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I'll wait then until we get to that line item.
The next thing is, I'm going to talk about, you have a sheet that says salary comparisons after survey results. So just some history on this, and I'll be giving this to the Board of Finance tomorrow. What happened is in the last 2 years, we've taken two positions that were union, full-time union positions. One was the IT director and one was the assessor. And we've changed those positions. With the IT director, we moved to a third-party IT company who handles our IT because they can be experts in multiple fields, which our director he could be an expert in one field, but maybe not 8 fields. And it just seemed like this way this went, and I looked at other small towns, and almost any town that had under 10,000 people used a third-party IT company, which is why we interviewed 3 and settled on Star Computers. I will tell you this, I talked to the chief at the fire station, and he said by far, this is the best IT work that we've been done at the fire station in years. That goes all the way back to Quentin's predecessor. So that was good news. So when we brought this company in, we pay them, which is almost equal to what we pay the director, but we don't pay any medical insurance, retirement. We don't pay those things. So that's called fringe. We don't pay that. On the on the assessor's office, we had a retirement, and we brought in an assessor who works full-time in another town. She works on Fridays for us, but she also can be reached during the week. She talks to Cecile quite a bit. She's been talking to Michael Anderson about the whole thing with the solar farms and that's going on in Hartford right now. And I feel like we're getting a full-time assessor at a discount rate because she's working for us part-time. We know she's very well qualified because of her background being the president of the Assessors Association for the state of Connecticut. But once again, we're paying a part-time position instead of a full-time position. And once again, we're not paying that fringe of the medical and so on, insurances and retirement. So the union said, well, that's great. You've just taken 2 union members out of our union. And what are you going to do for us now? What are you going to do about the employees that are there? Talking to Suzanne during the course of the day, and we know that there's multiple job openings everywhere. There's at least 3 or 4 openings right now in Stonington. There's openings in Ledyard. Almost anywhere you go, there's openings. And what happens is when towns, because you can't go to a college and recruit a tax collector or a town clerk, you do is you look and see who's around and you try to steal them from another town. Our town employees are all departments of one. So if I lose a tax collector, I lose the tax collector office. If I lose a accounting generalist, I lose basically that part of my finance department. And obviously, if we lose a town clerk, we lose a town clerk. So we don't have assistants and 3 people in the office. We have 1. And you have to protect those. So when the union said to us, you just took 2 union positions away from us, how are you going to protect the employees you still have? And I thought, well, actually more Suzanne than me, why don't we do a salary survey with a third party? There was a company that did this a few years back with Preston and Brooklyn. And we remember who they were, as Randy Frank is the name of the company. They come in, they interview all the employees, they find out exactly what their job descriptions are. Then they go out to very similar sized towns and find out what they're paying in those towns. Then they come back and they bring in and they have recommendations on where your people are. That's to put our people in a very competitive, not to be the highest paid by any means, but very competitive position where they're not underpaid when you look at the other towns. They're all very competitively paid with all the other towns of similar size. We can't compete with a Waterford or a Groton or somebody like that. We just can't compete because they're going to be paying a lot more money for these employees. And we have to hope that we make a really good working condition, small office, people get along, snow days when need to be. You protect your employees, but one thing you have to do, you can be as nice as you want and throw Christmas parties and have cakes and all the other things, but the bottom line is, what do they get paid? So we did the survey, and when they did the survey, I went through with myself and Sue met with every employee and told them how we came up with the number. And that's why they're all over the place. They're not straight 5% across the board or 10% across the board, because it goes by the position and what that position is paid in other places. So the total increase of all the people that were in the salary survey comes up to 54,792.85. So that sounds like a big number to start. But when you think the wages in the assessor's office, we save 30,731.11. The fringe on the assessor's office, meaning there's no one taking medical, retirement, and insurances, we're saving another 48,938. And on the IT office, because it's pretty much a wash between the IT company and the director's pay, we just look at the fringe, which they're not taking, is another 48,155.18. So basic savings in the town hall right now with fringe and salary is $127,824.80. When you take the 54,792 we put in there to protect ourselves so we don't lose employees, we're still saving the town a net difference of 73,031.95. So that's the savings we've increased in the town just in this last year and a half or so by making these changes, doing what we need to do for the existing employees, and we're still saving $73,000 by doing it.
Yeah, so Bob, that, certainly as I went line by line, I was noticing some of the, what we called in my field market adjustments, right? So we know we're not competitive and we have to bring them up. But that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure. Bob, can you share the survey that with John and I? Not that I don't.
No, of course.
I just want to see kind of how far off we were. And certainly I hear you saying we didn't even go with the maximum amount that one might see for that particular job. But that point you just made for John and I is really going to need to be explained carefully to the Board of Finance.
Yeah, and
right?
that's why I did the sheet so you can do that tomorrow evening. Yes.
Yep, exactly. So when we see some of these increases, it's going to be really important for everybody, the public and the Board of Finance, to understand that at the end of the day, there's actually a savings to the budget, rather, even though we're increasing some of them pretty significantly their people's pay. So I had just picked up on the 30,000 and change savings with the assessor with that position, and was starting to kind of add up some of the increases that you had for some of these key positions. But to hear that there's fringe, savings that isn't even clear on, the budget is good to know that there was more.
I think if you have a time in the next few weeks when you get back, or when John has time, if you met with Suzanne, it's a little bit of a complicated graph, but she can go through it.
Yeah.
I had a little trouble understanding it at first, but just show you the towns that reported back. I think it was 7 or 8, and how it all worked. That way you and John will have a better knowledge of this, because I'm sure that 2 or 3 years, and actually when Preston did it, we participated with them by giving them our numbers at the time. And I bet our numbers were low, so I actually brought down the average. But that was like 3 or 4 years ago. They had their survey. We did it now. And any town that did the survey with us, I know Boswell was one, they get a copy of the results also. And I think it cost us, it was around $4,500. What was it?
It was about 400 per position.
To do the survey. And there were some positions that didn't qualify because they didn't do myself. We could have, but I didn't do me, and I didn't do my part-time administrative assistant. So there's these are full-time employees that you can find in almost any town is what we did. Okay.
Yeah. And did you and Suzanne feel that, that it was apples to apples, right? Like Suzanne's position, we know, is a little bit of a unicorn because she does just about everything, from HR stuff, on down. So did you feel that it was really like positions, because towns don't have identical positions to gauge off of?
No, exactly. And that's why they came in. So the first thing they did was they contacted each of the employees that are going to be in the survey, and they sent a person down to sit one-on-one with those employees to discuss what their current job description was. And they both what we had in writing and what the employee thinks they do for a job description, because they aren't always exactly the same. You bring people in and then all of a sudden they morph into doing other things too on top of what we brought them in for. So I think this consulting group had a really good idea of what each of our employees did, and they took that into consideration when they were comparing jobs, because we will see some towns did not have a comparable position, so they did not enter a number.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on this, John?
No, I just like Nicole said, I'll sit down with Suzanne to look at the actual survey itself. But I mean, I see like Nicole said too, we really need to push this actual paper to the Board of Finance so they can understand what's going on, just so we don't have the arguments back and forth.
Oh, exactly. So,
But-
and go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead,
No,
Nicole.
I just wanted to ask a quick question. Were those increases put into effect now, or would these increases be put into effect for this next budget?
So we prorated the increases for the balance of this year, which is 4 months, and I think the first pay period that they took effect was last week. So they would have had, they went in last week. That's only now so you know how if the union gets a 3% raise, then pretty much all employees get a 3% raise. That this number did not include what we just put into their pays, did not include the 3%. It is in the budget. The 3% is included in the budget, but it was not included in what we just did now, because they haven't earned it yet. We're not to July 1st yet, if you
So
understand that.
your proposed numbers for 26, 27, do those
Those include the 3%.
the market adjustment and the 3% is what you're saying?
Starting in July, yes, but right now we
Okay.
only included the market adjustment because the 3% hasn't got here yet. Because we're still working off the last contract until July 1st.
Okay, so
Okay.
so this already took place and it's in effect, and employees are getting these increases. So for whatever reason, if Board of Finance comes back and says, after the three of us do all the cutting we possibly can that makes sense, and is safe to do, if they come back and say you got to cut by another 5%, those salary increases are kind of untouchable now then, right?
Well, they are, but we had enough money in the budget to do it. The only reason we agreed to do it is because we had that money in the assessor's office line for this year right now, because the assessor left us a while back and we weren't paying that position. So we have money to cover it doesn't add up to a lot of money for the last 4 months when you're not the extra 3% is not in there. So that's why we did it now, to show them. We did the salary survey. We started in November and we didn't get the final results until recently. And then that's why we just instituted it. But yes, they're in their salary. And I mean, the Board of Finance can say what they want. It could be that we have to, cut a position? I mean, we only have, I mean, every oppositions are all positions of offices of one person. So I don't know what they want.
No. Cut a position. I'm saying if they come back and say you guys are still too high, we want you to cut another 3 to 5% off of the total budget. I'm just saying that we really can't look at these salary line items. We have to find the money someplace else.
No, I agree. And I think that actually what I would be willing to do in lieu of cutting a position, I would step down as the Board of Selectmen for a selectman, and they can have this position empty at this point. I mean, I'm saying that in line because I would truly do that. To save the town hall as we know it today, with the quality of employees that we have, I would step down, and you and John could run the town as selectmen.
Okay, that won't be happening.
Well, I'm just saying, that's a good way to
So
save $68,000.
Yeah, we're gonna need to really drive that home for Board of Finance, I think.
Well, if I can think of one person that could step down and have the town hall keep running, it would be me. So, anyway.
And one more
I don't
question.
think you're giving yourself enough credit.
This will satisfy the union by taking, like,
We
their.
have an MOU with the union. They've agreed to it.
Okay.
Thank you for that's a good question, John. Okay, so now there's no sense in me going through the budget reductions on my sheet. We can just look at the budget itself. And what I'd like to do, like,
That you can put that up on the screen or no?
what's that?
The budget.
The budget itself?
I'm just gonna go off camera and bring up my, the document on my phone.
That's okay. As long as you can hear us and we can hear you, that's fine.
Yep.
And what we've done in the past, John, so you'll know, is we've go line by line through the expense side. And I might say if there's anything in that, go by section, if there's anything in that section that I wanted to make a change, and then I would ask you and Nicole also if there's anything in that section.
Okay.
So what Suzanne can do is as we make these changes, she can make those changes in her budget in her laptop, and we can see at the end where we are now. So we know we're starting at $846,475 increase, which is a 14.8% increase. That's our starting point. We already talked about salaries. So the first reduction that I was asking to do would be on B 1.14 grant writer. And there's $5,000 in that line item. I'd like to drop that down by $2,500, so we'd end up at $2,500.
Can you guys still hear me?
Okay.
Are
We can hear
we
you.
still? Yes, you can hear me. I'm sorry.
We can, yep.
Okay. Suzanne, are you doing grants, or do you just don't have the time with everything else to do?
So the administration part of the grants, Melissa is overseeing that because she does all the reporting. So that's moved over to her. But I do the grant writing for any RFPs that go out for the grants or for bids and what have you.
Okay.
And how does that impact you? How does that impact the rest of your job by having to write a grant? Like if we get an in-depth grant, does that give us the possibility of possibly losing a grant because you have day-to-day stuff that you have to do and we might have to hire an external grant writer?
It's always a juggle. I'm not gonna lie to you. I mean, it's could be very, some of the grants to write them take a lot of time. So yeah, it could impact it. But it's just about prioritizing and working with Bob and getting it done.
So if that becomes the case, though, you would see that in the beginning and then possibly you could get to Bob and say, look, we really need, this is a really good grant. We might want to hire an external grant writer at that point.
Yeah, we could. First of all, we decided we weren't going to chase grants unless we knew the town could embrace them. I mean, the only reason we took that grant, we chased that grant kind of on the food waste was because they wrote the grant for us. With the grant on the sports bubble, Emily Lewis did it last year. We paid her out of the grant writer fund. So if we really need something that needs to be done, and we think it's a no-brainer, we should go for it. And Suzanne doesn't have the time, we could appropriate those funds for that if we had to. But with $2,500, would definitely get us a grant or two written if we needed to. Well, I think what we end up paying to Emily, which actually was reimbursed by the general contractors that are proposing the sports bowl, they paid for the grant writing. We just gave them the bill. So if it makes sense and we feel like we have to do it, we will. But in the meantime, to carry the money there for what might happen, I think this is a year we really can't just carry the money for what might happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I agree as well, Bob. It was one of the things on my list as well. So I agree with dropping it to 2,500.
Perfect. Next, is there anything else in that first section that either you wanted to cut back on or?
Can I just ask about, where is auditing? Is that,
That's in,
okay,
under
I'll
Board of
wait.
Finance B3, it's right after this. You can-
Okay. I'll
So
wait.
the auditing, that number, which is a fairly big increase at 11,266. As you know, we had King as an auditor up until last year. And they decided they were gonna start dropping some of the small towns and just do work mostly with the bigger cities because they pay a heck of a lot more for audits. I mean, we pay, 40, 50,000, New London probably pays 250,000. So we lost King and then we went out to an RFP. And we had a lot of trouble getting someone to actually come back and give us a quote. Finally, the group that did, that we ended up hiring, it turned out to work well for us. And it's a 3-year contract and it goes up it's a small percentage. It goes up each year. I'm not sure if it's 5% or 10%, but they gave us all 3 years in that contract. So we know it's firm what that number is. And then it goes up to us, but also the Board of Finance, the Board of Education, they pay a portion of it also. They pay less than we do in the overall audit, but they pay a portion that should be in their budget. So
Okay.
this is our portion.
So that number really isn't touchable then?
It's not negotiable. If we negotiate it down, we'd be putting an RFP out for another auditor.
Yeah.
And the Board of Finance already approved this auditor for the 3-year.
And if I remember correctly, we didn't get a whole bunch of people, did we? Okay.
No, we
All right.
only had one, actually. We had one, King actually threw us a quote, but it was so high, they
Yeah.
God bless you. They quoted it not to get it, if you know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah, so, but this was the only one that was legitimate, and to be honest with you, I think they did an excellent job.
Okay, I'm good then.
Okay, next we're at the, assessors area. Is there anything in there that jumps out at you that either you want to talk about?
No, I think for me, so I'm assuming the assessor assistant was one of the salary adjustments.
Correct.
Okay.
And you know who that is, correct?
So
Okay.
so I have, that answered my question, the whole conversation before.
Great.
No, I'm good on that section.
Good, okay. BAA expenses, that's Board of Assessment Appeals. And it's $1,000, which is what, I think they pay $25 to each Board of Assessment member for each meeting that they go to, and she has about 4 or 5 meetings set up. Next, we turn the page, tax collector. I have nothing on, in the tax collector, the town treasurer, town attorney. Those 3 lines, I really haven't put anything in there. When I talked to Suzanne and we developed the budget from scratch, we looked at the history of what we use the town attorney for. I use the town attorney a lot less than my predecessor did. So if you do notice, our actual was 24,000 2 years ago. That was when we were having all those problems with the conservation easement with the tribe, and there were other things that were going on in the town at the time. And also, I was fighting with Jen Lineweaver. We were fighting against one of the solar projects that are in town that has not paid us any money for taxes. And we used an attorney for that. We were splitting the funds with Stonington on that because we both had lawsuits on this with the same particular solar company. So that has calmed way down at this point. So the money that we had originally set aside for the town attorney was 25,000 this year. We're in right now, we dropped it to 20,000. It's just a decision we made as we were building the budget. So it's not something we dropped since.
Okay.
Tribal recognition. I originally had that in the budget as $30,000. I want to drop that by 5,000. I'll tell you why. So there's been some developments. We're getting to the tail end, I think, of the land and trust issue. The other issue is always tribal recognition. From what I know, nothing's going to be happening on that for a while. And as far as the land and trust piece, that should be pretty much over one way or the other. by July 1st. So I'm thinking that our tribal recognition and land trust fees may be less next year. So I'm gambling that they will be. And that's why I thought we dropped it from 30 to 25,000.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. All right. Next is, I've got nothing in the town clerk's area, but I do have something in economic development. Do either of you have anything for me before I talk about what I want to do?
No, my question was in economic development as well, so go ahead.
All right. So economic development, the line I want to drop is the B15 line, operating expenses, and I was going to take, to work with even numbers, I was going to take $2,611 out. So that would leave us with $2,000 in that line item. I had a long talk with one of their only active members, came to my office and said, hey, she's the one that does the trifolds and the advertising. Said, what's going on? We haven't had a meeting in months. I know we have a new person elected to that board that's never attended a meeting. We haven't had a quorum. We've had people resign. We have probably 4 members of that committee that haven't been to a meeting in probably over a year, yet they're still recognized as being members of the committee, which is why we can't get a quorum. So I talked to Sue Cullen and this board member who's very anxious to get this thing up and running again. And I think what we're going to do is, at this point, try to revamp. I'm going to send out some resignation letters to those people who are still on that haven't attended meetings, see if we can revamp and get some new excitement with the EDC. In the meantime, try to work more with sector, which we pay for. And we have 2 chambers we work with now, Ocean State out of Charleston, Rhode Island, that handles the greater Wesley Mystic area, and then the Mystic Chamber. So and that money is also in the budget, and it has been in the budget. But because we have such a problem getting quorums, and I think the EDC right now is kind of in flux. Until we get that straightened out, why do we carry expense money? There's no reason to be having functions and meeting greets and things like that if we can't even get a quorum to have a meeting. So I'm advocating that we drop the $2,611 out of there, bring it to an even 2,000 for now, and hopefully I can get, with Sue Cullen's help and this one member's help, we can get this thing up and running again and get those people to resign. Now, if we do get 4 people to resign, and there's 3 active members, the new elected member plus the woman who spoke to me and one other that comes to meetings, we as selectmen then can appoint through the RTC and the DGC people to fill those roles until the next election. That's what I'd like to do, but it's going to take some work to do that. So anyway, that's where we are in economic development. If you have any input, I'd love to listen to it.
I tend to agree with that. I mean, from the RTC and DTC standpoint, is there a way, I mean, I know we'd have to do an ordinance change, maybe make this more like a commission, an appointed commission. So we had members that may reach out that may be, because I've heard several times and we've corrected them that our town committees won't endorse unaffiliated or independents, which is not true. If we don't have somebody interested that's registered in that party, at least for the Republicans, we would endorse them. So is there any chance or taste for maybe looking at that avenue as well and making it like an appointed commission instead of trying to go through an election?
So I think we could down the road, but I think you've got people who are elected that are sitting on there that there's 3 of them, 1 newly elected, 2 that are sitting there that have been elected, that are willing to go to meetings and do things. And I'm not sure how you deal with someone that's been elected, but they've been elected to the position, they have however many years left on their term, and you switch it to an appointed committee. But if we get the people to resign, the ones that don't come to meetings, aren't we virtually actually appointing people to fill those roles, at least for now?
Yeah, I mean, in essence, we are, but then, I mean, it seems like, I don't know, from my standpoint, EDC seems to be a tough board to get people to run for.
Right, so these people wouldn't be running, they'd be appointed for now.
They'd be appointed for now, but then
maybe we have that conversation.
2 years, would it be
Well, I think
back in the same spot.
we probably would have to, and I'm not sure about how this works. This is something that maybe Brett would have known when he was here, about what the statutes are. But I think you'd almost have to have those people that were elected to be willing to resign, and then we could reappoint them. Now it's an appointed commission, but I'm not sure what the legality is, John. I'm not sure how that all works. And something I can look into. We do know that the EDC, as we know it, is not functioning very well at this point. I also have asked Sue Cullen to take a bigger role in the EDC, because that's what she did for the last 3 years that she was at Stonington. And I think also tying ourselves in with the chamber. I know that one of the chambers has already inquired about using the fairgrounds for an event and advertising things for North Stonington. I talked to Carl Johnson about that the other day. So I think the chambers who do these kind of things, we might be able to benefit from that expertise. And we are we're paying members to be in these groups. So, and then Sector is a group that gives away low interest loans, grants. I think the place that used to be the sandwich shop in North Stonington up at the Holly Green, they've got a name change. And that, I think they just received a grant for $10,000 through Sector. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. I just don't think doing it the way we've been doing it we should continue that way. So maybe moving it to some sort of an appointed commission is the way to go. But I think that would be a bigger discussion. But just to get this thing moving again.
No, I agree to get it moving. And then, I mean, I'll be willing to do the research and see what it takes and then report back in a meeting or two to,
that'd be great.
To see where we're at. But seems like maybe we might have more luck that way. So
Okay.
I'll do the research and see what I come up with and then present it to you, Nicole, and Sarah. This is, the avenue we can take.
And I know, Nicole, this is kind of near and dear to you because of your time on EDC. I mean, that was like your first real board, not counting the conservation committee. Conversation committee, but this is like the one that you really stuck your toe in the water with a committee. I think, weren't you the secretary at one point? Is Nicole still there? Nicole, we can see your hand. Are you still there?
Yeah, sorry. So I, when I look back at the actuals for 24, 25 for EDC, it was like 1,800. I had actually, in my notes, dropped it to 1,500, Bob. I'm not going to quibble over $500, but I'm completely fine with dropping it to 2,000 even. I had even written down possibly 1,500. I think it needs a good revamp. And I'll be honest, when from my experience, when Brett was the chair and I was on for those couple of years, we had a pretty active group, and there were still times that we struggled with doing meaningful, work, something that was going to actually make a difference in town. It's a hard committee to get traction on sometimes, but it was pretty active back then. And so when I see actual numbers from 24, 25 budget of like 1,800 and change, I had actually suggested 1,500 for this at least. If we can revamp it and get some traction, and they want to come back and say, hey, we'd love, we want to do this, we think it's really meaningful, can we have an additional appropriation? But with this budget being so tight, like I said, I'm not going to quibble over 500. I had suggested 1,500, but I'm fine with 2,000 as well.
But I'm also fine with 1,500. That's where you think we should be.
Yeah, I could agree with the 1,500 as well. I mean, 500 is 500 during this budget season.
So B15 EDC operating expenses, I had dropped by 2,611.00, so we'll add 500 to that. So that would be 31,311.00, I believe, if my math is correct. Plus 500. Okay, thank you. All right, good discussion. Let's hope the EDC can come back and be meaningful again. I didn't have anything in recreation that seemed to me that was the total increase was only $2,254. It was a kind of a combination of not big increases and a little bit of a decrease. So I had nothing on recreation. Do either of you have anything there?
I didn't have anything in there.
Bob,
Okay.
I just have a question. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, maintenance expense, again, when I look at, do we have any idea, is that upkeep of that building? What do we think falls under that maintenance expense?
So a lot of it is there's program expense and maintenance expense, but the maintenance expense also falls on the building itself. I think there's two lines. One is more electrical, utilities, heat, and so on. This maintenance expense, I believe, is more in tune to the equipment and the things like that as far as running programs.
Okay, I just didn't know, we had, again, an actual of 5,100 and change for the 24-25. It went up to 8,000. I don't know where we're at with actuals so far this year. I had actually marked that as something that we might drop to 7,000, but I don't know if that's appropriate. I don't know if that 1,000 reflects increases in maintenance over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I don't have my P&L with me, which would be good through December, which
I got mine.
you do. So look at that line for the P&L. Is yours good through 12,
It
20?
says July through December 2025.
Okay, so that's 2/3 of the year. We're on, excuse me, 50% of the year. So what's that percentage? Where is it?
Let me see where we're at. 1602.
So it'd be B 1602.
Right now, we're at 5917 with 7,940.83. So they're at 0.7% on that line.
0.7 or point?
0.7.
Okay, so it's very low.
It's extremely low. So I have to agree with Nicole. I mean, I'm looking at so far. I mean, I don't know what their ticket items are, but they only spent $59.17 this year.
So I don't know whether when they do the Easter egg hunt and they do the summer camp, if they do things with that. But again, I'm not opposed to dropping the number if that's what you'd like to do.
Could we save it for this time and maybe send an email out to Fabian and see if it's something that they think they could live with?
Sure, I'll be glad. Tom comes in the office at least once a week. I'll be glad to talk to him and see if
Okay.
if there's something.
My suggestion is to drop the 8,000 to 7,000
Okay.
out of rec. That was all I had for rec.
Okay. So hang on one second. Okay, Brian Rathman just texted me to say if I could hear him. So if Brian, if you've said something to me, I can't hear you. It looks like you've texted me to tell me that you can hear us, but I cannot hear you. But I did make a copy of the budget for you because I thought you might be here, and I'd be glad to give it to you tomorrow. Okay. With that said, yeah, so did you want to drop it to 7 and then I'll talk to Tom and see if there's anything more to drop? Is that what you're saying?
I would be comfortable with that, dropping it 1,000 and then see if he could go maybe to 6. I mean, if they're 51 and I mean, their P&L so far is just so low.
Yep.
So I would be comfortable starting at the 7
Okay.
and then maybe working down. If we hear back from Fabian, we may be able to cut it even more.
Okay, so that's going to be B 16.02. And we're going to drop it by $1,000, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, next, fixed charges. So I talked to Melissa on this, on B 20.05, medical insurance. There was a decent increase in that, but also the increase we had was even lower than it could have been because if we still had a full-time IT person and a full-time assessor, that number would be much higher than it is now. So even though it was an increase of 15,384, that probably would have been closer to a $50,000 or $60,000 increase or more if we still had those full-time positions. With that said, I would like to gamble, and I'll tell you why. So in the 4 years I've been the first selectman, I've never got through a complete year with every employee intact. We either lose somebody retires from the highway department, or somebody retires from town hall, or somebody leaves, whatever it may be. And typically, we don't spend the medical money we think we are because we don't have an opening that we advertise for, and it takes a while to get somebody in. I would be willing to gamble with one position by saying one position which we have three types of insurance. It's individual's insurance, a 1+1, meaning if I was taking insurance, I could get for me and my wife. And then there's the family insurance. I was willing to gamble with the 1+1 insurance, thinking that, okay, if we lose somebody and then and we don't fill that spot right away, or if we lose two people, I'm willing to gamble with one insurance. If I'm wrong and we keep all employees for the whole year, that's great. We'll see where we fall. But right now, I'm willing to gamble with that, which is why I took 40,665.36, which is the medical insurance number for 1+1.
Okay,
I'm comfortable with that.
I agree with that.
You good? Both good with that?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I
thank you.
So Bob,
Okay.
I have a question. So now I'll ask my question after the fire per diem plan. So the volunteer longevity award
Mhm.
and the volunteer activity stipend.
Mhm.
I want to understand, and again, I don't want to take benefits away from our phenomenal fire department. However, I'm wondering how Chief envisions if we move, even with the partial movement that we're thinking of right now, does that affect either one of those line items? Because those are some pretty significant. So if the volunteer activity stipend, so my feeling is that if we're going to even add a couple of per diems this go round, this budget season, that will be less calls that a volunteer will need to do. I'm just wondering what his thoughts are, and maybe what your thoughts are on that, especially B20.08, the activity stipend. So that was just one of my questions as I was going through line by line.
Okay, so the longevity is years in service that they have to qualify by making this. They just can't hang around the fire station and get a year of service. They have to qualify by going to calls. The stipends are actually divided up after a call. So if they put so much money in the stipend line, and then depending on how many calls they have, they divide that stipend line by the number of calls, by who shows up, and they divide it equally. So let's say that there was $300 available for a particular call and 10 guys showed up, they would each get a stipend of $30. So that's how that works. And then, of course, the new tax abatement that got approved last evening is basically the same thing. It's you have to make X number of calls to get that tax abatement. I think we're getting to the point where we're trying to hang on to a volunteer fire department by doing these things. And I see it even statewide now. I see the governor's proposing some sort of a scholarship fund for firefighters and firefighters' kids and college scholarships and so on. And I think that everyone recognizes that it's tough to get volunteers. And then when you make that decision as a town, I know we can see some of the things that are going on with Norwich right now. When you make those decisions as a town to go to a full-time fire company, it's an awful large commitment and it's an awful lot of money to go that way. Because now you've got however many firemen you need to man that place 24/7. It's not just two guys at each hour. It's the entire fire company has to be available. At least you must need 5, 6, 7, 8 guys to go to a call, depending what kind, if it's a house fire or something like that. So if you got the full-time fire station and now you're paying all these guys not just to be there, but also all the medical and their pensions and so on, it can get pretty expensive. So I think that's the decision that North Stonington will probably have to make somewhere down the road. I also think that North Stonington might have to make a decision, this will be well after my time, about satellite stations. I mean, we would look at out where I live on Northwest Corner Road and also down near Clarks Falls. It's pretty far to go from our single station. You've got places like Norwich that has 5 fire stations. I was town of North Kingston, around where I lived for a while, had 4. I think Preston has 2. So I think there's a lot of discussion down the road of how North Stonington wants to proceed with their fire company. And I think right now we feel that the most economical way is just maintaining a volunteer fire company with per diems, but that might change, and that might change within 2 years. It could be 10 years, but that's a big decision for a town. It's very similar to going from resident troopers to a full-time police force and what that does. So I think that's a bigger decision than we could really tackle this evening, Nicole. But I think it is a decision that down the road, whether it starts during my administration or whoever follows me, that's a decision that should be talked about. And then is the town willing to, whatever that number is, ante up another $1 million or whatever it is to go to a full-time fire department, and maybe even talk about fire districts. Fire districts send out their own tax bills, and they're not part of the regular budget, but they have their own budgets, their own tax bills. So if you get a tax bill from North Stonington, the town, we'll say for $5,000, you may get another one for $1,200 from the fire district. I know that's how they do it in Coventry, Rhode Island, where my sister lives. So those are all big decisions and big discussions. And I think that somewhere in the near future, the town's going to have to talk about those decisions and those discussions. But I think right now, we still think that, and I'm not an expert, I have not done this research, but I think we still know that we're on the saving side by doing it the way we're doing it, even with paying per diems.
Okay. I mean, if you think that, if the partial program the partial addition of the per diem firefighters, if we think that will not impact any of the activity for volunteers for that $64,000 stipend, then I'm fine. That was just my only question. And I think just simply in my mind, if we have paid people sitting in the fire station, will that not, I mean, it's a lot to unbundle. Having 10 people show up and we did, I'll tell you, I think in my very small fire that we had in my side yard, I think we had 2 trucks and at least 8 people there. I'm fine with leaving and not touching the 64,000. I just want to kind of understand how that might be affected in the future as if we move to a paid per diem staff.
We could do is this board could do in the next 20 months or so is I'm part of the Council of Governments, which is 22 cities and towns. There's many towns within that council that are similar in size. I can find out if there's any town like maybe Lebanon, Colchester is much bigger, Lebanon, Basra, somebody like that, and say, do you have a full-time fire company or is it volunteer? If it's full-time, what does it cost you? What does your budget look like having a full-time, and how many employees does that mean that you have, and so on? So, and what size is the town? I mean, our town's the 3rd largest town in Connecticut, not cities, but towns. So you wonder, and we don't have satellite yards. So I think it's just a big discussion, but I think we can definitely start doing some research. I'll be honest with you, in the last month or two. It's been the busiest 2 months I've had since I've been the first selectman. It's all non-budget things that have, well, you guys know, you've been involved in it all.
Yeah.
It's crazy what's come over my desk that I share with you guys that we're constantly dealing with but it doesn't mean that we can't look at this and maybe after we get into the budget, once the budget is somewhat set, then I think that we can start looking at some of these other things. But I'm not opposed to investigating that and see if we can do it a better way. I just think at this time, I think we're looking at a much bigger dollar expenditure, and I don't know if the town's ready for that at this point.
Okay.
All right, well, I now I'm gonna want to look at it, so just to make sure, so I'll get that information back to you guys in the next month or two. We'll start talking about it, but I don't think it's gonna impact this particular budget.
Okay.
Great, thank you. So back at the top of page 4, I had nothing on the town hall expenses, but in the social welfare department, I had 3 adjustments. The welfare line, so we put the welfare line in a few years back, and we have used it once, actually twice. What that line is we were told that the state says if you condemn someone's home, the town condemns it. They can't live there. You have to provide housing for them for at least 2 months somewhere while they either get their house fixed or they find somewhere else to live. That could be a hotel room, it could be renting a house, so that's why we carry that $1,500, but it's kind of like an insurance policy, that when we did use it, we used it to help out a longtime employee at the school whose home was condemned and he had to get out, it was foreclosed on, and we helped him out. We did $1,500 one year, and it happened, this all happened right around that April through September timeframe. So we're able to use the $1,500 for 1 year. And then when the budget flipped July 1st, we're able to use that $1,500 from that year. But that's the only case that's come close to reusing this. So I was going to drop this, suggest we dropped it down to $1,000 for now. And so just be saving $500. I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but I think, but we should carry the line, because I think by the state statute says that we are responsible. So we need to carry a line with something in it. And that's why.
But could we drop it to $1 to keep the line and then go for an appropriation if something ever came up? Is that legal? Is that on the up and up?
I think so. I think you could do that, Nicole. I imagine we could do that. So you mean drop it by $1,499?
Yeah, just leave as placeholder of $1 in there. And if something comes up, we would have to talk about it and go for an appropriation.
Well, it sounds like this is a year that we're gambling a little bit on things. And I think that would probably be a good gamble. So, and we're not talking a lot of money. Even if we had to get a place for 2 months, it'd probably cost the town about $3,000 maybe. So, yeah, okay. I'm on. How about John? Are you on?
Yeah, I'm on board with
All right,
that.
so we're going to drop that line item by $1,499. So that'll be $1, $14.99. Okay, got it. Pocketing neighborhood, love them. They're great. $35,000 last year, $35,000 the year before. They asked for $40,000 this year. And I would be more than happy to talk to Sue Sadesky, who's the director, and say, listen, I love it. Come back next year and ask again. But this year being reval, I've been telling this story quite a bit to people that it's a reval year. We don't know where the mill rate's going, and we really have to make as flat a budget as possible. So with that being said, I'm thinking of dropping 40,000 down to last year's number of 35,000. So taking 5,000 out of that line item.
I completely
agree
as well. Plus, Bob, I know that some of our residents probably use the Pawtucket Neighborhood Center for some type of social service. I'm hoping, as I think we all are, that with the start of our Director of Social Services or Human Services, that maybe some of that information can be, kept in our town. So I'm completely in agreement. I had marked that down as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a
It's gonna
good
be a tough
marriage.
year.
I'm sorry, Nicole, I stepped on you. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say it's going to be a tough year for everybody, right? I mean, just being on Ledge Light's board of directors, every town is strapped, and that's going to impact nonprofits for sure. But I completely support dropping it to 35 again.
Okay, great. And I think, yeah, you're right. I think that's going to be a good marriage between our new director and Polka Dot. They do things that we won't be able to do, at least not right away. And I know I left in your mailbox at the town hall, and Nicole and I gave John his today. It's all the budget requests that we 3-hole punch for you to put in your binder. So all the 501c3s, all the different departments, all those requests, the ones that, other than the ones that have already passed out, are in your mailbox. So when you get back and you put those in your binder, but you'll see, you can read the Polka Dot Neighborhood TVCCA and all the different requests that came in. We did send a letter out that the Board of Finance had asked for new criteria. I sent that out last week. We actually got our first one back, and there's no way you would ever guess who sent theirs back first. I could give you 10 guesses and you wouldn't get it. So I'll just tell you that I have a packet from the fire company with the manila envelope with all the stuff in it that was requested, I assume.
Nice.
I'm not even going to open it. I'm going to hand it right to Mike Anderson tomorrow night.
All righty.
Okay. Okay, that's that.
Bob, the Child and Family Agency, is that a brand new ask?
Yes, and that's why I was going to eliminate it this year. I got a call from Danielle Cheeseborough. The past first selectman in Stonington. I think she's somewhat affiliated with this group, and she advocated. I looked back, and we used to give money to this group years ago. Maybe I'm going back. Maybe I saw it on a budget for maybe 2017 or 2018, but they have not asked for money in a number of years. And I would just explain that. Happy to have you back, but maybe not this year. When you ask us again next year, because this is a year that I really don't want to work with first-time asks. Maybe next year when the dust settles on the reval, but this year I think we need to be tight on our new people that are coming in and ask for money. So they asked for 5,000. I was going to take it out.
I don't disagree. I would support that, unfortunately.
Just a philosophy for now. And hopefully this new person, when they come in, he or she comes in, they can be able to vet these out for us. I'm picturing next year on a Wednesday evening, we have the rec commission and we have land use and so on, ambulance, talking to the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen at one time. We'd have our Director of Human Services coming in, and then that person could also say, hey, these are all the groups I want to work with. I vetted them all out. This is why this group would work better than this group. Maybe there's groups that he or she knows about that we don't support, and maybe some we do support. Well, someone they know could do a better job. So I'm hoping that we can just kind of put that in the director's lap to do all this vetting. Okay. Next, B24, Selectmen Engineering. So this $2,500 is, it's come in handy in the first 4 years. I think I've used it pretty much every year. I used it to get CLA to design the parking lot behind this building, if that ever gets done through that steep grant. Also, they've engineered a few water lines for us. When we need to have an engineer, CLA out of Norwich is typically who we call on. But I think that there's nothing on our agenda. They've already done what I need to get done with both the, we did again, this parking lot, but they also did the land behind Chucky's last year, where there's still a possibility of affordable housing. We're waiting for this very wet spring coming up to see if we've improved the water situation. We had Alan and the guys there last year digging trenches, fixing pipes. And we said, before we start talking about affordable housing to go in behind Chucky's, we said we would try to help those residents first, rather than just add to their misery. I think if we can find that we've done a good job of mitigating some of those water problems, then we can go back and advocate for affordable housing. Well, CLA is the one who did all the perk test and the digging and so on. So I was able to use my engineering, Selectmen engineering fund for that. I don't see anything like that coming up right now. So I was willing to drop it from $2,500, take $1,000 off it and put it down to $1,500. It has saved
I
us.
agree.
It has saved us in the past when I got something small, and CLA is willing to do those things for us, and they're very reasonable. So, okay, so we'll drop 1,000. Shouldn't be 1,500 I dropped out of that. So let me see, what line is that?
That is
B24.
B24, right? So it was 2,500. I dropped 1,500, so it's going to just be 1,000 for now. Okay. All right. We talked about the fire company per diem, so I don't think we have to talk about that anymore for now. Town road maintenance. So there's,
Bob,
sorry.
can I just ask some information about the information technology?
Sure.
I just was a little bit confused because, given everything that happened, I don't know if you and Suzanne can just kind of give a little bit of explanation on B25.05, the cybersecurity and network protection. Why
Yeah.
did that drop so much?
So I'm going to let Suzanne, Suzanne was handling this part of the budget for me, so I'm going to ask her to explain this to you. And also the software piece, if you could, Suzanne.
Sure. For the cybersecurity,
Yeah,
when we
please.
rolled out the multi-factor authentication was one part of it. We had to do some more checks and balances with our network for cybersecurity, and Star Computers put all that in place. And the training was also another piece of that, so that the premiums dropped from the 14,000 to the 4,000. Yeah, so there was a significant
Okay.
savings, and not only did it drop it, these went out to bid too. Not only did it drop it, it increased our coverage from 100,000 to 1 million coverage. I mean, yeah, so it
All right,
went up to
perfect.
1
Thank you.
million. Yeah.
Can you also touch on
Okay,
the,
so a lot of the work that we have put in place in the last several months is realizing that savings.
Yes, absolutely. So,
Nicole, I would think if we didn't have Star Computer in place when the school had their incident, I think the town would have been involved in the same incident.
Yeah, wow.
yeah, I completely agree.
We dodged a bullet for sure. Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Sure. And then under the software maintenance, the biggest ticket item is the upgrade of the website. The platform we're using now with Civic Plus is sundowning. It's not going to be supported anymore. So not only did we have to do an upgrade, the yearly maintenance doubled with a new premium website that we're getting. And we're in the process of setting up the implementation now, and we're going to start communicating that to everybody. So that was over 12,000 there for that.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Great. And I may have to have you explain that tomorrow evening if you're,
Sure.
right, because you'll be online. Perfect.
I have a
Go ahead.
question under public safety.
Go ahead.
I mean, I know it's not the fire, the flock traffic cameras.
Yep.
Where I understand that we heard the presentation and stuff. We're good. All of us are good with presenting that on this year's budget.
I'm good. My feeling is it was on the budget last year.
Right.
I did not do a great job explaining it. That's why I brought the trooper and the lieutenant in this year. They're passionate about it. I had them present. I'd like to keep it on the budget for now. If the Board of Finance hammers us to the point where we just have to find more money, obviously everything's up for discussion. But as far as now, I'd hate to see it. I'd like to at least have it make it by the first cut. And then again, because our trooper is so passionate about it, and
No, I agree. I mean, he gave a good presentation. I think there was my concern, at least for tomorrow night, there was some questions during that presentation that I think he was gonna get back to us with. That I think, we just gotta make sure we get the answers, like the installation and then. the
Yeah,
different
and
costs.
I have all that, and they should
Okay.
be in your packet.
Okay.
During the packet I gave you this evening, and then in the packet you have, Nicole, in your mailbox. So all those questions were answered, and the exact cost was answered, and that's the number that's in the budget.
All right, I'm good then.
So I have a question on B26.04, the state trooper. So we had an actual of 294,000 and change for 24-25, and then 25-26 it actually went down, and now we have a proposed. Do we have any explanation on why there's a $12,500
Yes,
increase?
because what happened was, we had a trooper that became a sergeant, named Wayne, the year before last, and when he got promoted to sergeant and he moved, they brought in a young trooper named Alex Kono, who was at a lower step. So that caused the money to go down because he was at a lower step trooper. We lost our resident trooper, and we had a fill-in trooper for the last, well, 7 or 8 weeks, I guess, who was filling in as our afternoon resident. And he was also at a higher step than Alex was, who the only reason Alex left was he got a promotion. So now, as of March 2nd, yesterday, we have a new trooper. There was 3 troopers, I believe, up for that were being interviewed for the position to become a afternoon and evening trooper. I got an email from the Boone Pagan, who's the lieutenant, saying happily to let you know that Catherine, I can't think of her last name, I always call her Kate. She has been a resident trooper here before. She was here when Dave Green retired, and she knows the town. She went on to become a dog officer for a while, and then there was no openings when we had our troopers in that position. She's no longer a dog officer. She was on the road. She wanted to get back to being a resident trooper. Again, she was one of 2 or 3 people that interviewed for the position. She works well with Jay. She works well with me. She was in the other day. She's one who definitely stop in and visit to say what's going on in town, what do we need to do, if you heard anything. And it's going to be a great, it's great for the town to get Kate back, because I think she was a wonderful trooper. She works again well with James. Jay, you've probably seen her sometimes doing some overtime, whether it be the Frights and Lights or the fair. And I think she wanted to get back to a town. But of course, she is also at a step higher than Alex, who was a fairly new trooper when we took him on. So that's why the increase. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yep, thank you.
Great. Yeah, so it's just like it happens with the school a lot when someone retires and they're on like step 10 and they bring in a new teacher who's on step 1 or 2, there's a savings. But then when you bring in a teacher that's got their master's and they've been teaching for a number of times, they start at a higher step, and that's kind of what this is. Okay. Anything else on public safety, John and Nicole?
Yeah.
Okay. And so at this point, you're okay with leaving Flock on there for now?
No,
and see what-
I was okay. I hadn't got my packet till today. I mean, I was a little busy last week, so I think I'm fine
Reading
with it.
time last week.
Yeah, so I'll be able to go through it and.
Yeah, please do. And if you have any questions, I'm sure this will not be our last budget discussion.
I'm sure.
We can only hope. So now Public Works Highway. Okay,
Bob,
yes.
we have a 2614 still we didn't do,
What?
the 2614.
Oh, did I miss
per
something?
diem.
Hold on.
Yeah.
That was the fire
my
per diem you were
question.
lowering.
What are we dropping that to? The per diem?
2614?
Yes, the
Yeah.
per diem for the fire department.
Oh, so that was the 147,300, 147,436.80. Do you have that sheet I gave you?
I do, and I have it being dropped down to 272.
Oh, I don't know what the drop down was too. I was telling you how much I was taking away. Maybe I did that one kind of backwards, but I had to mathematically figure out what the hours were that we weren't doing. So it's a 147,436.80.
Okay, we're good then.
Great, thank you.
So can I just clarify, Bob, is the 147 and change what we're willing to put in the budget this?
No, so their ask was $420,000.
Yeah,
That was what I was able to reduce. So the ask was 420, the increase was $288,000, total increase, 288,000. And I was able to reduce that by 147,436.80.
so that's still, okay, so Suzanne, do you, can you do the math really quick? What
Sure.
are we putting in that line item?
I have 272, 563.20.
Correct. It was four,
Yeah.
it's 420
That's
minus
still-
147.
Yeah,
That's still a huge increase. So,
Well, it is a huge increase because there was two increases. There was one that, one for the two per diem they have now, there was, when they said they were going up 3% plus the employee taxes. So that brought that from 131 to 151. So it was a $20,000 increase there. Then you take that amount of money for those two per diems and you take that times an extra 40 hours. So we had 50 hours we already had that we're covering, which had an increase of $20,000. And then the increase by adding 40 more hours at that same $29.12, I think it was per hour, times two, because there's two guys working at once, and that's the increase. So yes, it's because we're going to if you just figure 40 more hours times that rate, that's a pretty big increase, you're right.
So it looks like that would end up being the increase actually with the 151, 410 would be 121, 153.20 that we're adding.
Well, 151 is part of the 420.
Right, so I took away the 147 from here, from the 420, got us down to 272, which was the number she gave us.
Yep.
And then took away the original 151, 410 for the two that they already currently have. So really, we're increasing that line 121, 153 to get the total of 272, 560.
That sounds about right, because it would have been about 75,000 for the two new per diem at 40 hours each. And then with the increase from 151 to 150, from 131 to 151, so you're right.
Yeah, so right in there, it'd be about 121,200, just estimating there, Nicole.
okay. All right.
Okay, anything else on the public safety?
No, sir.
Okay. So now we're gonna have a conversation I had with Alan. So if we look at B 2701 and B 2702. So I'm gonna explain what those two different lines are. B 2701 is funding that we get from the state, 318,985. And that, so that was an increase. You'll see it's pretty much the same numbers in the revenue side. And when we get to the bottom of this sheet on reductions, you'll see this. So it's an increase of 79,802 on the expense side, but it's also an increase of just about the same number on the revenue side. So it's a net wash, but it's free money from the state. It's no matching. There's nothing to do. They give us this money when we get the governor's proposed budget, and then with all the ECS funding and Mashantucket Pequot funding, ROSUP and all the things we get, that's is what we get. But the line under that is B 2702, which is $160,000, and that comes directly from the taxpayers in North Stonington. So I said, what do we do with that 160,000, Alan? He said, we buy all our salt, our sand, and we usually chip seal at least 1 or 2 roads every year. And then all the other money we get from the state also does road work. We put in culverts, we put in new piping, we might put in new asphalt, new lining. So I said, what would happen? We have the steep grant money coming, and that's for 3 roads to chip seal plus the work to be done at the transfer station. And you get this 318,000 from the state to do road work. What would happen if I cut 110,000 out of the 160? He said it cost about $50,000 for gravel, for salt and sand. I said, so if I left you that $50,000 for salt and sand and took the 110 away, what would that mean? He means, well, it's probably maybe two roads we wouldn't be able to chip seal next year. I said, overall, Alan, our roads are in very good shape, correct? He goes, yes. I said, would it kill us to skip 1 year, this reval year, and take 110,000 and not do those 2 roads this year and wait a year and just move everything back 1 year? So if you're supposed to do Northwest Corner Road in 2028, now it's going to happen in 2029. If you're supposed to do Babcock in 2026, 27, now you're going to do it in 27, 28. Is that feasible? He said, yes. So I said, great, because I'm going to take 110,000 away from you. And that's how I did it. Nicole, comment?
Nope.
I've had a lot of hard discussions. So it's, you can't, it's in the old days, when we used to just say, okay, we just take a truck out of capital and be done with it. We're not doing that anymore. And thank God we're not, because we're not not kicking that can down the road anymore. But I think that, by not being able to do that, you can't balance a budget by taking 500 here and 2,000 there. And as we said in the past, right, it's 100 paper cuts, but we never seem to get to where we want to go. I think you need to get some big money movers. In between the fire company and this town aid road are 2 places that I was able to move almost 250,000 out of this budget. So that's how I came up with that. I said to him on B27084, we got $45,000 in the snow removal. We know we've already blown through our budget for this year's snow removal. What do you think? He goes, well, he said, I'd be willing to gamble on that, because I think that, it's typically you don't get banged 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row. He said, I think I would be able to take 20,000 out of that and drop down to 25,000. I said, are you sure? He goes, yeah, I'm pretty sure that we could do that. And if worse comes to worse and we get a crazy year, but we gave 3 years in a row, we gave back quite a bit of money of overtime we didn't use on snow. Last year, we did exceed it by a little bit. This year, by quite a bit. And we'll probably have to get an appropriation at the end of the year to fix this year's issues. But going next year, he felt he could drop himself from 45 down to 25.
Yeah, I had that written down as well, and we'll just kind of add it to the gamble column and keep our fingers crossed. But I had the same thought too.
The thing with snow is everybody sees it. It sounds like it's a hidden cost. Everybody, we live through it. So, the guys are out there doing their best and working crazy hours. So, all right. So that was that. And I didn't have anything else out in the highway until we get down to Public Works transfer station. There's nothing I wanted to deduct, but I did want to explain something. But I think I'm going to wait till we get to the bottom of this page. So I've got no other reductions on this page 5, conservation and health. I do want to mention senior citizen. There's not a reduction there. There's actually an addition, and this is our thinking. So I sat down with Sue, and we talked about this position, and you'll see there's a $32,000 increase in the senior center coordinator, because that job will not be that. That job will be human services coordinator, which would incorporate the senior center coordinator and the agent for the elderly. So there was 2 stipends before, the agent for the elderly stipend and the senior center coordinator. That was also a part-time job with no benefits. My feeling is that we're not going to be able to do that as a part-time job, at least to start, but I didn't want to do it as a 40-hour-a-week job. I want to do it as a 30-hour-a-week job to start and see if it evolves to something bigger. It might have to evolve to moving to 35 hours and then maybe to 40, or maybe it's 30 hours plus an assistant. I'm not sure. I don't think we're going to know right away. But we also put in that $32,000 a stipend, which is included in that number for cooking meals. 1 meal a week, 3 times a month, and the Christmas party and the picnic. And we don't know if we're going to be able to hire a director who's also willing to be the cook. So we figure, well, what's it going to cost me for a cook for, say, 5 hours to do the shopping and the cooking and the cleaning 3 times a month, plus the Christmas get together and the annual picnic. So we came up with a number, and we added that into the number of the 59,517. So it wasn't a really big number. Do you remember what it was, Sue, approximately? No, it was like somewhere between 5 and 8,000, we'll say. So that's how we came up with that number. But so we've got we might find a coordinator that does cook. We might not. If we don't, I don't think the seniors would like to find out that they're not going to have their lunches anymore, which is a big social event for them on those Wednesdays, as well as the holiday party and the Christmas and the picnic. So that's how we developed that number. I think the town is behind us moving to this direction. I've heard from Board of Finance members last year. We've heard during the discussions about the giving closet last year, how the town really needs this. But we can't say we need it and then we don't want to support it. Either if you need it, you need to financially support it. And we're doing our best to try to figure out what that number is. And I think we're going to be somewhere close, but as you said earlier, Nicole, it might be a year before we actually go through this all and find out, is this how we want to do this? And we'll have to address it at that time. But I think we all agree it's a need, but you just can't snap your fingers and make a need happen without paying for it. So that's my thoughts on that. I'll be willing to discuss.
No,
Go
I
ahead.
tend to agree with you on that. If you're going to keep the whole package, it would be great to get, a senior coordinator like we currently have that would do all of it. But if we can't, we could break it out. And the seniors, I mean, like you just said, their Wednesdays and then their holiday party, that's something they look forward to. And we're trying to guarantee that they're not going to lose services by implementing this. And I think that's something we got to stand by.
I agree. Nicole?
Bob, the agent so remind me, is Teresa staying the agent for the elderly?
No, she is not. She's retiring in full.
So does it have to be it doesn't have to be somebody different. Why can't we make the human services director be agent for the elderly?
We were planning on that, Nicole. It's
Yes,
a different line. So Teresa got stipends on two different lines. At B29, she got the 15,032 this past year. And on the senior center coordinator line, she got 26,660. So her combined pay was those two lines added together.
Okay. So you're proposing that the total compensation for this new human services director is the combination of those two lines.
Right. So basically you're looking at, it's about $75,000 because it's 59.5 plus 15.4. So it comes out to just under 75. But we said there's about 5,000, between 5 and 8,000 of that number. We might be paying for a part-time cook to do the meals and so on, if we can't find a director that wants to do that. I mean, Teresa's like one of a kind, right? So, I mean, she did it all and she loved doing it all, but not everybody wants to do it all,
Yeah.
So anyway, what we didn't want to not plan for that and then say, oh, by the way, now we got to go find a cook, and we didn't budget for it. So we're going to budget for it just in case.
Okay.
Now I'm hoping after hearing Teresa's talking and her input on this, she said a lot of the vegetables and stuff come from her garden. Whether they work with her or the Pawcatuck Neighborhood Center, if we use them because they have their garden too for fresh vegetables.
Right. I know Pawcatuck does drop vegetables and stuff at the senior center from time to time, and I'm hoping that the coordinator can build a relationship with the Pawcatuck neighborhood so they get that figured out.
That's what I'm hoping as well.
I think Teresa only buys typically like the meat products and those kind of things, but usually the vegetables and things she can get, either has them or she gets them.
Okay.
Okay, so I just want to let you know what we're thinking, how we budgeted that area. Miscellaneous, I have 4 reductions. One of them's not going to go over so well, but I'm leaving the school maintenance contract alone for now. It's $100,000. But I had a tough discussion with the superintendent, and I said, listen, this is like a seesaw. If I'm adding $100,000 to the town budget, you need to be very transparent. We need to see where this is coming out of the school budget. The taxpayer should not pay any more. If the taxpayer feels like we're taking the $100,000 and putting it in our budget, and the school's filling the 100,000 with something else, will be another position or something that they were looking, computers, whatever happens to be, the taxpayer is not going to want it, not going to like that. That's not transparent. It's not doing what we said we would do. But I'm not taking it out yet. I'm thinking if we feel there's no transparency or our budget is in such a mess that the Board of Finance is coming back and saying, hey, you guys got to lose another 100,000 somewhere. Well, you can imagine where I'm going to go first. And Troy knows that. So, yeah, I think, and we could push this off till next year, but we'll keep the 100,000 from last year that we did, and it's actually working pretty well. The nice thing about that is not only it's helping the school, but also our guys with more expertise, like Alan and Phil and Steve and those guys have a good eye for what actually has to be done and how to do it and how to get quotes and so on. So we think we're saving money by due diligence on how to repair some of these maintenance issues. And we're trending pretty well so far on the $100,000 we took. We're below where we should be as of now. So we can keep that one because that's been in the budget since last year. But this new 100,000, which is for the maintenance contracts, it's in the budget for now, but it's not guaranteed to stay. And that's just my thought on that.
Yep, no, I agree.
John, you,
No, I agree as well. I just, to reiterate your point, I'd like to see the transparency and breakdown. So when we do present to the Board of Finance and that we back to back, when we do our dual, that they do see the actual, this came from here and it went to here. So it's just an even
okay.
swap.
Okay, the next three are all back to back. Next four are back to back. Right, Land Hill Valley Association. They've asked for money to get rid of the milfoil or what's the other one? It's an invasive plant. It's on Long Pond. The town of North Stonington owns 1 mile of Land Hill Road. It starts out at Route 214 at the casino. That's owned by Alleged. Goes up to the state boat ramp, becomes North Stonington, and the boat ramp's in North Stonington. Goes for about 1 mile, becomes Legend again, and then eventually becomes Stonington. So we're in 1 mile on this road, and the Long Pond is on this, and the state boat ramp is on this. So they've asked both us and the town of Legend to support them with $3,500 each to help them with this invasive species. I'm thinking that this is not a year to do this. I think we already donate money to our 3 interior lakes, Wyasa, Blue Lake, and Billings Lake. We give them each $5,000 a year to do the same thing. I know last year we did not give them money, nor did Legend. I also think they have an opportunity to get grants. So my thought is to not support the $3,500 for this year.
I agree.
That's fine with me.
Okay. Next, it's a small number, but Eastern Connecticut Conservation District. I look through there, and you'll see it. I look through their ask. I don't see where the town of North Stonington gets a direct benefit. So I eliminated the $500 from that ask.
Agreed.
Three Wise Women, they asked 1,500. They got 500 last year. I'd be willing to bump them from 500 to 1,000, but not 1,500. So I was going to eliminate 500 out of that line.
I agree.
I agree.
And then
Is it just the light?
I mean, yeah.
Is it just the lights for like?
I don't know. They asked for 1,500. To be honest with you, I have not read through their packet yet, but when they presented their packet for the small amount of money they're asking for, it's the most complete packet because don't forget, Sarah is on the Board of Finance. They did the policy and she went by that policy exactly. I mean, the packet is like about a ½ inch thick for a $1,500 ask. I just haven't had time to go through it yet. I will go through it, but I was just thinking that she got 500 last year, give another 500 this year, but not the 1,500. And then, so it'd be $1,000 they were getting. I could do whatever you guys want to do on that. That's just the way I thought about it.
I'm okay with that.
I mean, I'm okay. I think we're making a fair compromise. We're meeting them in the middle.
Okay.
And if they do come up with something again, they're a line item. If they can show that they're really in need for the event, I mean, we could go for an appropriation and try to get them. So I'd rather gamble rather than
Okay,
put it out there in the beginning.
good, thank you. Here's the one that's not gonna go over well. Keeping our Stonington affordable. We've given them $1,000 for each of the last 4, 5, 6 years, maybe. I can't tell you one project that's happened. I know we are gonna try to work with them a bit on the land behind Chucky's. They're working in unison with the Affordable Housing Commission, who has not met in many months. I think they're waiting to see what happens on that piece of land behind Chucky's. But there's 2 other projects KNSA has. They've got a lot that I can support, that supports two buildings on Trolley Lane in the village. And they still have that schoolhouse in East Clocks Falls Road. And neither has shown any movement. I think they just got a grant for $500,000, and if they did, that's great. So this $100,000 isn't going to make or break that grant. But I just think in this particular year, when we've seen no results that can be reported back to us that this is what they've done with the money, other than maybe do a fundraiser, I'm think that this is a year we drop this down to $1.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, last night I was sitting there trying to decide what way the room was going to go as far as the 30,000 for the America 250. And it really, I think the room last night was very telling. I think this is going to be a year of need to haves and not nice to haves, unfortunately. And I'm not for 1 second saying that affordable housing is a nice to have, but we've got to, I mean, let's face it, $1,000 is not gonna, it's not gonna make our budget look tremendously better for the Board of Finance. But I think maybe taking a hiatus this coming year for this budget season is something that we need to do. So I'm
Agree.
reluctantly and unfortunately in favor. It's going to be a tough budget.
I agree. Okay.
Just for clarification, you said to $1, not to.
Yeah,
zero.
so I got us taking out 1,000, but a lot of times we leave $1 in, Suzanne, so we can have a line item. So I would take $9.99 out. B34 attorney fees, land use. I looked at what we've done in the past on land use on this. It's not we haven't come anywhere near to spend what is earmarked. I think we had it earmarked as $10,000, or I should say land use had $10,000 in there. I'd like to drop this down by $2,500 down to $7,500.
All right, so this whole section, coming off of this board and looking at our P&L currently, I look at the 2,500 and there's some things down below that I'll explain, but I'd like to see that currently on their P&L, attorney fees are at $766.50, 7.7% of their budget.
That's through December, though, right?
That's through December.
Through December, yep.
Okay, so through December, so they may have had a couple of legal bills in between. I would like to drop that to 5,000 would be my suggestion. And then I know I'm getting a little ahead, but their advertising, which is right below, I'm looking at their advertising, and I know, I mean, we heard from Susan and telling us, look, it's unpredictable on what they might get for applications and what advertisement they might do. But in what they've spent so far this year, I'd like to see that drop down to currently, let me see where they're at before I quote
It's
this.
4,600 right now.
It's at 4,600, but they're 3,402 on here. I just want to make sure they're extremely low on that as well. I'd like to see us take $2,000 off of that,
Okay.
and that would be
John,
a 7 there.
Can you just clarify for me? You're saying that their half the year was, they've already spent 3,400.
No. So like I was saying on the attorney fees, they've only spent $766.50. On the advertisement,
Yeah.
on
Advertising one.
advertising, they're at $212.75 currently.
Gotcha. Okay, so yes, so I agree with both of your suggestions.
So I would like to drop them down as well. And then here's where the debate is. I like that on Bob's suggested cuts. And this is where we'll have the discussion on the contracted consulting. Coming from that board and reading over the ordinances, I feel like it's a need for them to get it even in an eval year, because what I feel like is these ordinances haven't been updated in so long. And we could actually, we spend the money now, it might save us in costs and courts or attorney fees later because they're so outdated or they're not up to snuff to where they should be according to state. So we could take the money out of the other two lines and we'd end up spending a little more, but we'd get that 12,000 and we'd get them the ordinances updated for planning and zoning and more current so we know we're covered. And that's just I see your cut, Bob, but that was just my feeling.
No, I understand. So do you need the full 12 and how did they come up with 12? That's
The
a very
12 was
round number.
contracted, so when they went through, and I have her sheet, I think right here,
So
but they went through and he was the guy who had actually done it before and left off at a stopping point that Suzanne had got with. And Susan Cullen, yeah. And when she went through them, it was Donald Poland. So they had been in contact back and forth, and they feel like it's a really good price. If they went to somebody else that had to come in from an outside that wasn't involved with the town or didn't do it before, it would cost them a lot more. So they got a good, in their opinion, got a good price for this. And I think now, even with the eval year, just to cover us, that we should update some of these ordinances, because looking at them and reading through them when I was on the board, some of them are a little they're outdated and they should be adjusted, if not just to cover us as a town.
So you're telling us that you'd like to take 5,000 from the attorney.
Yes.
And you'd like to take 2,000 out of advertising.
Yes.
So it's a total of 7,000.
Yes.
And instead of taking the 12,000 out of this, leave that in.
I would like to leave that in and get them that office back up and more current than what we're in 2026. And I think the last time there was an update that wasn't full was 2018.
Well, because you were on the planning and zoning commission, I would acquiesce to you. I think obviously you know a lot more about it than I do. If you feel that passionate about it,
I do.
Then I would say that I can't not agree with you. So I would agree to take 5,000 out of attorney, 2,000 out of advertising, and leave the other line at 12,000, which is what,
B 34.034.
Yeah, I'd leave that alone. So, all right, so I'm going to cross that off, take 5,000 out of attorney fees and 2,000 out of advertising. Did you get that, Sue? Yeah, okay, perfect, right.
Are you good with that, Nicole?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah, I think that's, again, because you have background in that area, John, I'll agree with you. Okay, and that was the last cut I had because we're at the end of it. The only other thing I want to say, and we can get off the budget at this point, and Sue can maybe give us a number. I came up with, before we started this with my cuts, I was cutting $360,213.16. If we're anywhere near that, I'm still happy with that. We might be right around there because I think what we might have cut in addition might have just went back in with the contract and consulting, but still, if we're in that 360 range.
I have, it went from 14.08% down to 8.17%.
8.17.
Over.
So this is where I'm going to take this last piece a little bit right here. So you see notes, A3.00 state aid town road, 319,058. That's an increase in revenue by 79,839. Then there's a B2701 state town road expenditure of 318,985. It's a $37 difference in the town's favor. So basically, we're getting $80,000 more than we did last year, and we're spending $80,000 more than we did last year. So it's basically a net zero to the taxpayer. It's $37. On tipping fees, we're getting an extra $94,258 in revenue, and we're spending an extra $119,362 in revenue and fees, expenses. That's a net $25,104 to the taxpayer. And it's not in the town, so it's costing the taxpayer $25,104. And then lastly, on the school maintenance contracts, we'll be getting $100,000 or taking $100,000 out of the Board of Ed budget, putting $100,000 into our budget, and that is a net zero to the taxpayer. So the bottom line is, we're budgeting an extra $299,164. So let's call it $300,000 we're budgeting in our budget, which would look a lot better if it wasn't in our budget. But the taxpayer is only realizing a $25,000 expense. So if I took that $300,000 and added it to the $360,000 we're already taken out, we're really down to almost like a 3% increase in going from 14.8 all the way down to like 3%. I don't know how I can explain this to the Board of Finance. I can't be in the voting booth with each voter explaining this. I can try to do my best at public hearing and do my best at a town meeting. I guess if I had to, I could ask if I could take it out of the revenue and take it out of the expense side, take them both out, and just leave that $25,000 in on the expense side. That's how I could get rid of the 300,000, or exactly 275,000 difference. So it's really hurting the way the budget looks. Yet it's to the taxpayer. They're only paying 25,000, not 300,000. But it doesn't look that way because we can't always associate normally revenue against expenses, but these line items are exactly the revenue line and expense line, exactly the same thing. Worst comes to worst, I can always do it with the $100,000 because we just take that out of our budget, and the Board of Finance will have to take it back into theirs. But that's only 100,000, and that might get us down to maybe a 5 point something or a 6 point something, but still not going to get us to where we need to be. If I get this 275,000 out of there, and then if you look at the cover sheet of the budget, there's 316,000 coming out of capital, which is, except for a $24,000 floor machine, that's all town capital. So basically, if I took the 300,000 out of the capital that we were saving, the 300,000 out of the budget that we are getting reimbursed for, and the 360,000 roughly that we just cut, we'd actually be under budget. So, but I don't think that the Board of Finance is going to buy into that, but I'll do my best sales job. We'll see what they have to say. But, and I might even have to find out how can we best represent that extra 300,000 that's in the budget, but 275 of it's covered by revenue. And that's where we are.
Bob, just from a timeline standpoint, I'm not there in town tomorrow, obviously, for the Board of Finance meeting, and I can log in and listen in, but we're not presenting them, you're not presenting them tomorrow with this final version. Is this?
It's not final, but it might be final for me if I try to go in there with an 8% increase and they kill me. But no, it's 8% at what we just took down, that 360,000. But it's when you add in $300,000 of revenue and $300,000 of expenses. And then, but it only shows on the expense side in the budget. It doesn't show on the revenue side. The taxpayer doesn't see that revenue. They just see the lump sum revenue that goes into lowering the mill rate. They don't see the revenue offsetting the expense
Yeah.
side.
I just, in past years, it just seems like the Board of Selectmen has had a lot more back and forth with the budget to play with the line items and see how close and comfortable we can be. And I know there's just so much else going on. I just didn't know if what you're presenting tomorrow, what we've done tonight, is going to be our final budget that we're presenting to the Board of Finance.
No, last year we had 5 or 6 renditions. I think what we'll do is we'll be going to this with them tomorrow. And then I think next Monday, they're gonna be looking at our budget and telling us where we have to go. Then we're gonna have to go back and meet again and see what else we can find in our
Okay.
budget. And then we're
So
gonna
this
go back to them again.
This is just our first pass
Correct.
of what we're comfortable with right now. They'll take it and then we'll get uncomfortable. Is that
Exactly.
we'll have to go back and be okay. All right, thank you.
All right. So anything else on the budget? It took a little
Scott.
longer than I thought, but I think it's because it's the first go through and we had to go line by line.
Pass.
Anything else on the budget?
Not at this
I'm
time.
all set.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to do tax refunds.
I'll entertain a motion to do tax refunds to Kenneth M. Comavon in the amount of $175.44. Harry Antonucci Jr. for the amount, and Susan Antonucci for $64.35.
For a total of
For a total
230.
of $239.79.
Okay.
I'll-
Did you just second that, Nicole?
I did.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, perfect. All right, next, old business, I have none. There's no vacancies and no appointments at this time. Is there any public comment? There's nobody in the room, so I guess online. Is there any public comment from online? Anybody online want to say anything?
Yes, Brian Rathbun.
Brian Rathbun, I remember we couldn't hear you before, so you can try. Brian, I can't hear you. If you'd like to send me a quick text with a question, since you can hear us, I'd be glad to read your question. And I could ask the question out loud and we can answer it for you. Is there anybody else besides Brian asking? Just Brian? Okay. He's typing. While he's typing, our next meeting, it says March 17th, which is next Board of Selectmen meeting, but I'm pretty sure I have a meeting tomorrow night, and I think I'll probably be here on Monday if they're going to be discussing our budget. So, but as far as us three together, the next time we meet is March 17th. And Brian is.
Bob, tomorrow night is not a hybrid Selectmen finance meeting, is it? It's just.
No, we have no more hybrid meetings. I'm just here to present. Yep.
Thank
you. It says flock out is only done with land acquisition fund, land acquisition fund. So we did not fund land acquisition fund, Brian. That has not been done. Flock cameras is still in the budget as of today. We'll see where we go with that down the road, but because we had the trooper come in and his lieutenant came in, we're passionate about it. We decided to leave it in for at least for this go around. It may have to come out later if we're really up against it and we have to eliminate more things from our budget. So Flock is still in as of today. And then during the capital, land acquisition fund as part of the capital, we did not fund that. We did remove $1,000 from KNSA. So I know that's something you usually talk about each year. Is there anything else? Okay, he's typing. He said, I'll see you tomorrow. So adios. All right, so I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Did you say second?
I'll
You're
second that.
You're breaking up a little bit. Must be that nice
Oh.
warm weather. All right, so
Solar flare.
all those in favor of adjourning, say
Aye.
aye. Aye.
Uh,
So we're adjourning at exactly 8:45 and